Hi, my name is Bilal Majid, and I interviewed my friend's mom, who is Sylvia Rivera, and for this presentation, I decided to focus on the work aspect. And by work, what I mean is both having a job and also the house duties. And duty is not to be mistaken with poop. Recently, she applied for a job and she was not granted the position. This could be because the economy is not doing so well. However, I find it a little hard to believe that that's the only reason because I have a couple of family members who are men that applied for jobs recently and all of them got the position. I asked her if men ever took any of her suggestions at work into play, and I got a really interesting answer.
If I have something to say, I'll come forward and say it. They've never made me feel, less of a woman for speaking my mind. And as a matter of fact, many of the suggestions that I have brought up to them, were put into play. For example, when I worked in a box company in Hoboken, when I first started there, they had this way of doing the work. We were, the boxes, of setting up the boxes as they were going through the machine. And I suggested, separating them and fanning them and putting them through the machine that way they wouldn't stick to each other.
During one class, a professor asked us if we have a form of agency. He asked a couple of girls and a couple of guys. The girls that he asked said no, and the guys that he asked said yes. However, in this particular case, it looks like she did have a form of agency, which is good because men and women should be treated equally. You would think that the women managers would be nicer to the women employees than the men managers would be towards their employees. However, in this case, it doesn't really seem like that, which is really surprising.
I actually was treated better when there was a man manager.
Really?
Yeah.
You know why, or?
Yeah. Yeah. Can I say?
If you want to.
Because they were always tearing down my shirt. No, I'm not kidding. There was this one manager. I was younger and I dressed cuter. And the guy was always looking down my shirt. In that particular case, the man was a little perverted. However, she also went on and mentioned that the women, whenever her children got sick, the women managers said, send the children to your mother, while the men managers were sympathetic towards her. Was there any position that you were not granted due to the fact that you're a woman? Yeah, I applied to UPS at one time in my early 20s. And it was for, heavy lifting. You have to lift 75 pounds or more. And it says, the ad said male and females apply. And I applied, but when I had the interview, the guy said that he was actually looking for a male. Because it's heavy lifting, it's 75 pounds and over. Which I was able to lift 100 pounds myself because in my teenage years, I used to lift weights. That right there is a form of gender being socially constructed. Now, what I mean by that is women, when you think about them, are looked at as fragile, weak, thin, while men are looked at as strong, assertive, macho man type people. Studies have shown that men make more money than women. In 2012, for every $1 a man would make, a woman would make 69 cents in the same position. But recently, Obama reported that for every $1 a man makes, women make 77 cents. So we're definitely getting towards the equal pay. However, men still make 23% more than women. When Sylvia was working at the box company, she said that the men were making more money than the women. However, she said it was justified because the men had more responsibilities than the women, and on top of that they had to do heavier lifting. But she did also mention that when she worked in other positions, the men always made the same amount of money as the women. As we've read in High Tech High Heels, when women are working, they're being watched, they're being surveyed. The men, the surveyors are making sure that the women are working properly and effectively and they're not losing any efficiency. However, in Sylvia's case, she is able to work without the men, the managers, other male employees. They don't have to always check up on her. They trust her.
they know that she's going to do her job, so they don't have to check up on her regularly. All she has to do is do her work, and at the end of the day, she has to show that she's done her work. When Sylvia's out shopping, she's noticed that when she rings stuff up at the cash register, the cashier, if it's a man, the man is a lot nicer than the women. The women usually has a really mean facial expression on their face, while the men are smiling, asking them questions, making sure that that she found everything she was looking for. But she also mentioned that when her husband is ringing stuff up, the women are the ones that are really nice and cheerful. The women are the ones asking how he's doing, if he found everything he was looking for, while the men just give him a really mean stare. In terms of house duties, she is currently doing all of them. Now, this is not necessarily a bad thing, because right now she's going to school part-time and not working, while her husband is working full-time to feed the family. So in this particular scenario, I believe her having to do all the house duties is justified. Although this is justified, this is still a form of informal labor, because she is working, not necessarily in a job, but she's still working at home, cleaning, cooking, etc. She doesn't get any pay for it, while her husband, who is doing something similar in the sense that they're both working, he's getting pay for it. Now, everyone knows that squirrels love to be on humans' backs. Now, the reason that this slide is on here, one, because the presentation is coming to an end, and two, because I want you guys to go nuts. No, I don't want you to go and buy nuts. I want you to literally go nuts.